Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to be sharing today's video with you where I interview my good friend Kian 𝗤𝙤𝙧𝗫. Kian is a sourcing expert and has been at over 20 Canton fairs. And in this video, I'm going to be interviewing him and asking him key questions to help you and I to prepare for the Canton Fair. Whether you're going physically to China next month or whether you go in October or whenever you go, this video will help you to prepare how to navigate your way around the Canton Fair, what the different phases are, how to prepare a spec sheet or how to speak with suppliers, and so much more. I know that this video is full of value, but for some of you it may be a little bit long, so I've prepared chapters for you down below where you can see exactly at what stage we're speaking about what specifically and go to that exact stage. If you're new here, my name is Sharon Evan. I am an Amazon seller. I'm also a product developer, and I also help people on a one-on-one level, on an Amazon level, and also to bring their ideas for products to life as well. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. I promise you're going to find so much value on my channel, and also it really helps to keep me motivated and helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you also are in need in one-on-one coaching, I will include my details down below. I'll also include Kian's YouTube down below as well. And without further ado, let's get into the video. We're going to talk today about Canton Fair. Now, we've spoken both on my channel, on your channel, on seller sessions. We've spoken about Canton Fair many times, but this time, Canton Fair, China's open again. You're going to the Canton Fair in April, and we decided to make this episode to help to prepare people who are going to the Canton Fair and just giving more information about it. But for anyone who lives under a rock and somehow doesn't know who you are, do you want to just give a quick intro to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I thought you were going to say, like, for those of you who lived under a rock and don't know what the Canton Fair is, but yeah.
No, who don't know you.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, how's it going, guys? Hope you're well. My name is Kian 𝗤𝙤𝙧𝗫. I've been living and working in China for the past 12 years. In that time, I've designed, developed, sourced, and manufactured over 2,500 different products. And that's led me to work with over 500 different factories and attend more than 20 Canton fairs in real life. And as a result, I've developed products for the NBA, the Olympics, the United Nations, Ministry of Defense, a lot of big box retailers in UK, Europe, and the US, as well as a lot of Amazon private label sellers, Shopify sellers, and now some people in the crowdfunding industry as well with like innovative products and things like that. So a lot of people ask me, like, you know, how are you able to supply all these different brands and companies and things like that? And really the common denominator is that if you can get the best product in the world at the best quality at the best price from the best factory, then you can supply anyone that you want. And I've been doing that for like 12 years. So happy to share with you guys today and give you guys some actionable advice that you can apply to your business today to improve your sourcing practices.
I'd love for us to start in the beginning because there is some people that may live under a rock and don't know what Canton Fair is. So so for everyone watching, this is both going to be like beginner and advanced friendly, but let's start off with what is the Canton Fair? You know, where is it? When is it? Let's start off with the basics first, and then we'll get into the more,
sure,
you know.
And by the way, I just want to touch on one thing you said, is that, like, you said that this is like beginner and advanced, and I think that's so important to note, because like I think a couple of years ago, like maybe pre-COVID, we would have looked at supply chain content and I maybe would have like tiered it to be like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. But now you can throw that out the window. Basically, the changes and the challenges that we've had in supply chain in the last few years, you either have to do it to a very high standard or you can't do it at all. Like, you'll get left behind if you're not doing it properly. So that's, I think, anything that, you know, you hear from Sharon or myself in terms of supply chain and all aspects of your business as well, the standard has risen so much that there's no shortcuts now. Basically, you have to be doing it in the best way possible. But yeah, the Canton Fair is the largest import-export exhibition in the world. It takes place in Guangzhou, China, in the south of China, and there's over 26,000 exhibitors, Chinese suppliers, that exhibit there over 3 phases. And why that's important is that the type of suppliers and the quality of suppliers that attend this fair are your more higher end and advanced suppliers that typically you wouldn't find on online platforms. Now, that might have changed over the last 2 or 3 years because of the challenges of people getting out to China. But as Sharon mentioned, that like travel to China has fully opened up now. And there's been some good news in the last 24 hours with like visas as well. Like, you know, all visas that I had a 10-year visa for China and it was scrapped during COVID. And then we had to apply for a new visa, which I just got my new visa, but they were only issuing single entries. But it was announced that they're reinstating all old visas now as well. So if anyone's been to China before, whether they've got a multi-entry visa or a 10-year visa, if you still have that, you can continue to use it. But yeah, the type of suppliers that you'll find at the fair will be slightly higher quality because this is traditionally where buyers of big businesses, like the ones I just mentioned in terms of retailers and licenses and big buying power companies, they typically come to the Canton Fair to meet the best suppliers, to, you know, develop their next products, to negotiate their price, and then go and visit their factories. So these types of factories aren't necessarily incentivized to list their products online because they were already dealing with the biggest brands and customers in the world. So this is the type of suppliers that we have access to. When you walk around this fair, when you walk around this exhibition, you're dealing with people which are very good at what they do. So you also have to become prepared and you have to be very knowledgeable about what the products that you want, what your target prices are, have your samples ready, make your specification sheets so you can best utilize the factories which you have at your disposal when you come to this fair.
So what you kind of answered a little bit of it. So we know where the Canton Fair is, we know what it is. What do I need in order to attend the fair? And then how much also does it cost as well?
Sure. Essentially, you just need, for anyone who's been to the fair before, you get like a blue badge. So if you have that badge, that's what gets you in. And the good thing is the Canton Fair is absolutely free to attend. Obviously, you have to pay for your flights and hotels to get to China. But quite often, I think people look at the cost of a flight ticket or a hotel or a trip to China and be like, you know what, this is quite expensive. I don't know if it's worth it. I'm just going to find these suppliers online. But actually, I would argue that it's actually more cost effective to go to China and do these things rather than doing it online, because think of the time and the money that you spend on sending samples. In terms of, your supplier might charge you $200 for a sample, you might pay $200 for the freight of that sample. They might not get it right first time, you have to do another version, but there's like 2 or 3 weeks in between them making the next version. So quite often you might spend, you know, up to $1,000 on samples from multiple suppliers. It might take you a few weeks to get that product that you really want, whereas you can do that for multiple products with multiple suppliers, right there and then in the fair. Touch and feel the products, see what they have, request your changes. They send the instructions back to their factory, and quite often they can send a sample to your hotel while you're still in China of that new version that you wanted. So you're literally coming back home from this trip with like all your samples, all your prices confirmed, you've met your suppliers, you've built your relationships, and then like after this week trip or 10-day trip, like you're rocking, like you're good to go in your supply chain, and you can sort of focus on other aspects of your business. But anyone who's been involved in supply chain knows that it can be a lengthy, costly, tedious process, and this kind of just fast tracks all of it and gets you better results.
That's actually a really good point, because a lot of people are going to be focused on, oh, you know, how much it's going to cost to you know, the hotel, all the spend that you just said. First of all, if you've got a product that like time to market is really important, the amount of time you save by being able to do everything on the spot, like you just mentioned, that's also worth money. And not only that, the types of terms and things like that, which we'll talk about soon, that you can, you know, your negotiations, etc., that you can do face to face, I'm sure is very different from what, you know, as someone who's always done everything face to face, and then the last 2 or 3 years have forced you to, you know, move to online. I'm sure that you now have a comparison that you can, you know, you can compare it to, and things that you do face to face in China and on the spot, it's very different from how you do it online. So long-term wise, it's an investment, and totally worth it. So it's a really good point. Let's think about you know, people who haven't been there before. Do you have any recommendations, because you've been so often to the Canton Fair? Do you have any recommendations for where people can stay, or any recommendations to, you know, to help someone to maybe it's like a follow-up question to help plan schedule, like to schedule their attending the fair and like navigating around the area and around the fair as well?
Sure. I mean, it's interesting with like sort of opening up like their visa applications and stuff like that. There were not many flights from Europe and the States and all that to China, but now they've opened up a lot more routes. So I think the flight prices were quite initially high, but now they're starting to come down. And the same with hotels. Like they haven't really had a lot of foreign, whether it be like tourism or commercial reasons to visit. So I was looking at hotels that I used to stay at in China, and they're like 40% cheaper like now than they were back then. And I think they're just desperate to get people back in and things like that. So, but in terms of the recommendations for hotels, like you'll find some hotels which are right next to the exhibition, and you don't have to be that close, because every hotel runs a shuttle bus to the Canton Fair, because you're talking about maybe what 75, 100,000 people which are coming to attend this exhibition, and what a hotel can hold, like maybe max like 1,000 people, something like that. So every hotel is packed for people coming to the Canton Fair. So even if you're like 30 minutes out, there's like a shuttle bus for you. I would just double check on like Google Maps the Canton Fair exhibition hall and then where your hotel is, and as long as it's within like 20 or 30 minutes, you're absolutely fine. But there are obviously like hotels closer to it, just whatever your budget is, there'll be an option for you. And then in terms of like how to plan your trip for like attending the fair, I think it's very important to sort of establish and be self-aware, like, okay, how many new products do I want to launch next year? How many products am I selling right now? Which ones do I need better quality? Which ones do I need better price? And really come to the fair with a plan of, okay, I've got 3 brands. Across these 3 brands, I've got 15 different SKUs. These 5 are absolutely fine, but with these 10, I need better prices. Maybe I don't want to change my supplier, but I need better quality. So you can reach out to suppliers and ask them, will you be attending the Canton Fair? Will you be exhibiting at the fair? Because a lot of your suppliers, like they might not take a booth at the fair, but they will visit just to see like their friends and other customers and see what are the new trends and things like that. So you could actually line up, and if you're a good customer to your supplier, they will actually fly to Guangzhou just to meet you as well. So you can actually line up meetings in your hotel with your supplier. They'll bring you new samples and things like that. So it's a really good question, Sharon. Like you have a plan for your trip. Like I wouldn't just get on a flight to Guangzhou and just expect magic is going to happen. Like you have to really have all your samples with you of what you're currently producing, or if it's a new product, have you bought your competitors' products, written your list of all your likes and dislikes, what you want to improve, and actually show the supplier in the booth, like, right, I want this product, but we're changing this material, we're adding this zip, we're making this fabric waterproof. And they're looking at it and they're like, got it. And they're making their notes, they're sending it back to their team back in the factory. But if you just came, hey guys, like I've got this idea for a product, it's kind of like that, but I just want it to be like better quality. They're like, well, I can't help you. You know what I mean? So like, there's a difference between having your existing products of I need better prices, better quality, backup manufacturers, etc. And then there's also, I want to find new products. Because while we develop products, so do our manufacturers. And at this fair, you're going to see what new products your suppliers have been working on as well. And you might see something that catches your eye for whatever category of product that you're in. And we'll cover that shortly as well, like what categories we can expect to find there. But you might see something and be like, I've never seen that before. I really like that. And then now you can go into the booth and you can talk to the supplier about exclusivity agreements and like, hey, I want to take this, but like I want to be exclusive for 3 months, or give me exclusivity for the German market, or what quantity do I need to order so I can I will be the only purchaser of this product. So there's so many opportunities, but you have to have a plan and you have to be prepared with what you want to achieve out of this trip.
So let's just give a scenario. Let's just say that let's make up a product. Let's just use a bag, because you've got a bag in your background. So I'm just going to use a bag as an example. Let's just say that I sell different types of bags, and I'm coming to the fair because I've been working with the same manufacturer for like 5 years and they won't budge. And I know that I can get it cheaper, and I want to meet with, a new supplier or whatever. Or second scenario, I haven't made a product yet, but I know exactly what I want. So I need to come by having a plan that includes, you said, samples. Does it also include me actually having a specification sheet ready to show them? What other things can I prepare? Or Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And sometimes you can actually prepare your specification sheet when you're there because you don't actually know what are these new innovations, features, materials, whatever on the product until you actually see it, right? So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say we're working on an outdoor furniture chair, right? And I've done my research, I've looked at competitors, I've been to some retail stores, I've bought some samples, but I still haven't figured out exactly what I want my version to be yet. But I'm going to go into this hall and I'm going to see about maybe 20 different suppliers who have outdoor camping chairs. So what I would do is I would maybe select, and I would do the same thing if I'm sourcing online as well. I would kind of select, like, just by looking at them, here's my top 5 suppliers that I probably want to work with, that I want to talk to. And here's the 5 that I like dismiss that I'm probably not going to work with for whatever reason. But I would go into the booths of the factories that I don't want to work with first, and I'm going to ask all my, I'm doing air quotes here, stupid questions, because there are no stupid questions. But I would ask, like, you know, hey, what materials do you use on this chair? Like, is it polyester? Is it nylon? They're like, oh, well, this was nylon, that was polyester. Oh, cool. What's the difference in the quality of the material? Well, you know, nylon's a little bit tougher and it's a little bit lighter, but it's a little bit more expensive. All right, how much more expensive? Probably about 20% more expensive. All right, and where do you export this to? The US market. Oh, cool. I'm also going to sell in the US. What certificates do you have for the US market? Oh, we have this one for like waterproofness. Oh, cool. To what level of waterproofness does it go? Oh, well, you want to have this like double PU coating because it makes sure that like the water doesn't go through it, and you would also add this water repellent coating. Amazing. And I'm just like writing down notes the whole time. And then I'll be like, well, what about the tubing of this chair? Is that steel or aluminium? They're like, well, that was aluminium because it's lighter, but for the US market, they put the chairs in their car, so they go for steel because it's heavier and it's more robust. Interesting. Okay, cool. Steel cheaper, more expensive. Steel cheaper. Amazing, cool. And can I get this like sprayed with the Pantone colors of my brand? Yeah, it's going to require powder coating. That powder coating is going to cost you an extra $1.50. Like, amazing, cool. So I'm basically now I've like figured out exactly what's involved, and I'm knowledgeable about this product, and I know what I want based on the market that I'm selling to. And then I'm going to go to the booths that I do want to work with. And I'm going to be like, hey guys, you know what? We're going to need this outdoor furniture chair. It's going to be 40 by 80 centimeters. It needs to be nylon material. It needs to be waterproof coated 2 times. It needs this water repellent coating. We're going to go for the steel tubing. The thickness needs to be this. We need this type of testing, and we need this carry bag to hold it. And the carry bag must have this padding at the bottom because I know that the stitching comes loose. And these suppliers are going to be like, whoa, this guy's a pro. Like, he knows exactly what's going on with his product. I'm not going to mess him around with the price because clearly he knows what's involved in this product. And I just learned that from the booth, like down the road. And as long as you like ask your questions, understand what are the difference in the products in terms of price and quality and material, and then apply that to the company that you do want to work with, you'll start to get the suppliers respect. They'll want to work with you. They'll give you the best prices from day one. You can walk away with samples, most likely free of charge, because you've shown that you're like a serious customer. And then you can make your specification sheet. Then you can also ask the factory to make the specification sheet for you in terms of, based on all the instructions I just gave you, and they're writing it down, can you create a specification sheet for me to confirm before we make the first sample? They're like, yeah, cool. And our designer will make it that day in the factory and then send it to you. So there's just so many advantages and so many different things you can learn, whether you're an absolute beginner about it, to source a product that you want to do in the right way, or if you're an experienced seller and like now you're just trying to get better prices, better quality, all that stuff.
I just want to say, this is actually something, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but this is something that I do all the time now. It's actually something that I did learn from you, probably, I don't know, first podcast we ever did together out of, I wonder how many podcasts we've done. I think we've done at least 20 together, at least. Really? That's just at least, probably more.
We did a lot in lockdown, actually.
We did a lot during lockdown, and there was one of these calls where you just gave this tip of like, first of all, reach out to the suppliers you don't want to work with, and then reach out to, and we spoke before we started filming, and I told you that over the last 2 years, like, because I also do coaching, I've also worked with a whole bunch of clients on products that I've never worked on before, which means you need to learn about new materials, new processes, etc. And I do this every single time now. So instead of me spending hours necessarily learning about the process of how the product, I will today be a little bit clueless, reach out to a supplier I know I don't want to work with, learn everything from there. And then, I also then know what to Google if I need to Google, only then we'll reach out to, it's one of the best tips I think that you've ever given that have actually like really helped me in my business as well. So that's a great tip. And it's great to know that I didn't think about that you can also do that like physically in the Canton Fair as well. So I know what I need to come with. I know that I need to understand the product. I need to know as much as possible about the product. When it's face to face, what's important for me to then ask the supplier, like the person in the booth, and how important is it the way that I present myself physically? Because it's different when you're doing what I mean is not physically hugging and stuff. What I mean is, when we're used to reaching out to a supplier through Alibaba or through WeChat or to whatever, there's a type of way that you speak to a supplier. But now that we're face to face, you can't bullshit and things like that. You know what I mean? You can't quickly go on Google. It's face to face. So how do I need to present myself? How important is that, when it comes to that? And then what are important questions for me to ask when I'm at the booth, like at that point in time as well?
Well, in terms of presentation, if you're a male, you have to wear a full suit and tie, three-piece suit for sure, polished shoes, otherwise I take it as disrespect.
You're kidding, right? Like that's a joke.
No, because if anyone's seen any of my YouTube videos, like I've got one in the Canton Fair and I'm literally just wearing like a t-shirt and a backwards cap. And I think that's the cool thing about the business that we're in, right? In terms of we're all entrepreneurs, we all kind of start from nothing, we all have our own personalities, we're all a little bit weird in our own way. And for that reason, there's not like a right approach. Like we're not working in like corporate finance where there's a way that we have to dress or talk or anything like that. So I've sometimes gone like smart casual. Sometimes I just wear like t-shirt and shorts. You see some people going fully suited. You see some people just wearing sandals and like oversized like swim shorts. Like you can be whoever you want to be. The important thing to the suppliers is, are you going to place an order? And based on like the words that come out your mouth, they can kind of tell, are you serious or not necessarily like by your appearance. But it's a very good question to ask, because
not just physically, what I mean by also presenting yourself is also like the way that I'm speaking to them, like what if I don't know English and I'm speaking, you know what I mean? Like also how I speak to them.
So I for me personally, like I like building rapport with the suppliers, right? So like it's funny, like a lot of suppliers like basketball, and I love basketball as well. So sometimes like, the suppliers have got a Chinese name, but they've also got an English name as well. And I'll say to the supplier, what's your name? And they're like, Kobe. I'm like, oh, Kobe, you like basketball? He's like, yeah, I love basketball. I was like, who's your favorite player? Kobe Bryant. I was like, me too. And then we just start talking about basketball for like 20 minutes. And then we start talking about business later. But we have that good rapport and relationship now that like we want to help each other out. We want to, and by the way, I'll tell you one thing, like a lot of these guys that you talk to, like even if I don't do business with them, we become friends, because I'm like, we're just two young people, entrepreneurs. We see eye to eye, like we enjoy what we do. And you know what, we had a nice conversation, we exchanged numbers. Like you might exchange emails later on, and like 4 years later you might start doing business together because you just kept in touch. So you're going to meet, your network's going to massively expand. You're going to meet make a lot of new friends. You're going to learn a lot about like how your products are made and what sort of suppliers think about when they're pricing items up and things like that. But you can absolutely just like be yourself, like whether you're like a handshaker or a hugger or whatever it is. You can present yourself in whatever way you feel comfortable. But in terms of like questions to ask, it's interesting. So I don't necessarily have like a checklist of like, here's the things that I need to ask, but maybe because it's just planted in my brain because I've done it so many times. But I think if there's a beginner that sometimes they might be a little bit like, find the booth like a little bit daunting, to be like, I don't know how to talk to these people because I've never done this before. It's a completely different culture. And I would kind of frame it the same way, into the same types of questions you would ask to a supplier when you find them on Alibaba. And I would just sort of ask things like, how many years have you been in business? How many workers do you have in your factory? What certifications do you have? What markets are the main ones you export to? North America, cool. Who are your biggest customers in North America? Do you guys develop your own products, or do you just take the customers' products and make what they need? do you guys sell online as well? Just things like that. And then with these questions, it'll just spark different types of conversations. And I'll just ask them random stuff, just like if I'm in like a retail shop, and I'm like, out of interest, like, how's the fair been for you so far? Yeah, good. Have you been busy? Yeah, a little bit. It's a little bit quiet at the start, but picked up in the afternoon. Cool. Out of interest, like, what's been the most like popular product at your booth that people have inquired about the most? Oh, this one. Oh, how come? Oh, because we've got this new feature. Oh, cool. Can you add that feature to that product? Yeah, no worries. So like, just, it's kind of like, I would compare it to, like, you know, for single people, like how you would approach a guy or a girl at the bar. Like, you know, what type of things would you say to them to like spark that interest? And you can kind of tell by like body language, like, you know, that you're getting on well, and things like that. So it's kind of like reps in the gym, right? The more you go to the gym, the stronger you get. The more booths that you go into, the more suppliers that you talk to, the better you understand it, the better that the better you get at it. But by all means, you just have to go in and do it, and you'll become comfortable very, very quickly, and then you'll start to really understand the types of questions to ask.
You know, I'm glad I asked that question. I'll tell you why. You can tell the difference between someone like you who's been in China so many times. You answered that so confidently. You just popped out so many different questions. Whereas someone like me who has been sourcing, you know, most of my adult life, but online, and lots of relationships with men, asking you that question, I was like, even I may, because I told you when I do go to China, like, I'm probably only going to do it when you're there, so that the first time I'm at the Canton Fair, like, I can watch you, and it'll probably make me feel more comfortable, because I'm so used to doing it online, you know. And I'm sure many people that are listening to us, because when I first reach out to a supplier, most of the time, like, first impression matters when it's online. They're receiving so many emails. I want to make sure that they pay attention to mine. And that's why I asked the question, because how many people are walking into that booth? How do they know who to take seriously? And that's why I was like, okay. And you inserted into your little quick checklist that you just made. And I'm sure there's many more stuff that also comes out. It was like business, personal, business, personal, business, personal. And that's how you build rapport. And that's why I'm so glad that I asked that question, because it's great to learn from you, you know, and you pop that out like that. And I'm sure that on the spot, you know, more questions come up, obviously, but like, I probably would have never approached that online. You know what I mean? That quickly, it takes time to build that.
The thing is, you made a really good point in terms of, like, a lot when people reach out online, the supplier's kind of thinking, is this person a serious customer or not? Because it's so easy to go on Alibaba, find a supplier, and just say like, hey, what's your best price? And before they reply to you, they're kind of scoping you out to be like, is this person a waste of time, or do they have a legitimate business? Are they starting out? Have they been established for 10 years? And like, they kind of want to know a little bit more about you before they
first impression matters. Online.
And because, as you said, they're getting such a high volume of inquiries. Now, the beauty of Canton Fair is that you're not there for a holiday, right? So if you're in the Canton Fair, it means you're serious about doing business. You've incurred a certain expense and time out of your month to go to China, to visit this fair, to stay in a hotel, to eat food that you probably don't like. So you're there to place orders, right? So like, from the moment you walk into a supplier's booth, they're not sizing you up to be like, is this person going to waste my time? If you're in their booth, you're there to potentially place an order and inquire about business. So that's why that's also a fast track way to deal with serious suppliers, and for them to take you seriously from day one as well. But it was interesting as well in terms of, like, you know, I'm happy to help anyone which wants to attend this fair. I'll be there myself, and there is actually a trip that I'm involved with as well called China Magic. So
I was just about to say, you're on a trip. Do tell us.
Yeah, so if you go to ChinaMagicTrip.com, we go for the Canton Fair in this upcoming one in April, and in the next one in October as well. And just for anyone who wants to know the dates of the Canton Fair, you have like 3 phases. There's phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 I've always avoided. It's more like industrial, heavy machinery, and like more raw material type stuff. But phase 2 is April 23rd to April 27th. And that is like, I'll just read out some of the categories. Some of them are very, very popular for Amazon sellers. You've got like home and kitchen, tableware, ceramics, household items, personal care, toiletries, like clocks, watches, toys is a big one, gifts, premiums, like festival products. So like Halloween, Christmas, You've got art, ceramics, gardening, huge like furniture, pet products, food. So there's a lot of categories there for like Amazon sellers. And in phase 3, there's like a 3-day break between phase 2 and phase 3 where they like take down the booths and then set up the new ones. Phase 3 is May 1st to May 5th. And there you've got like a lot of apparel, men and women's clothing, sportswear, casual wear, leather related products like fashion accessories, home textiles like carpets, shoes is a big one, office supplies, my favorite cases like backpacks and things like that. Then you have like sports, travel, medical, healthcare. And then in phase 3, you also have something called the International Pavilion, which is they have one hall just of non-Chinese suppliers. So you have one hall with like suppliers from like Turkey, India, Korea, Bangladesh, all those other countries, and they'll come with whatever is the speciality of their country. And that's kind of where you find like really like new innovative stuff that like are quite obscure, but like, oh, there's an opportunity here. And I think that while we talked about having a plan for this trip as well, you have to kind of leave maybe 10 or 15% for dealing with new opportunities. Like you might see something that catches your eye and you're like, I think that will do very well. And then that night, you can find out the price and all that and find out the carton dimensions. And then that night in the hotel, you know, use your tools and figure out like, you know, what's the search volume for this particular product? Is there an opportunity here? Go back to them the next day, find out who they supply, see if you can do an exclusivity agreement. If they're really good, then go and visit their factory after the fair. I always leave a few days after the fair to go visit factories afterwards as well. So yeah, but if you are interested in coming to China with us, you can go to ChinaMagicTrip.com, and then also, if not, also feel free to just send me a DM if you're there, you want to meet for a coffee or something like that. I'll definitely be there. So yeah.
What can people expect on the China trip?
It's basically we go to
Fair,
the fair. Yeah, so we go to the fair during the day, and like I'm there so people can come to the booths with me, or like if they're like, hey, can you come? I'm trying to do this like pet blanket. Can you come and like talk to the supplier for me, see if you can negotiate a better price, and like I'll do that for you while you're there, and then like you'll learn the skills to then like go off and do that by yourself as well. And then in the evenings when we come back, people like come back with their samples and share like, you know, what was their experience that day, or any questions like how do I go back and get a better price and things like that. And then in the evening we also do like some mastermind sessions as well, like I'll go over like my product development process, or like how to get the best credit terms on your order, and like how many backup factories to have. And there'll be an element of like Q&A and presentations, and then just sort of general networking and stuff like that as well. So a lot of the best friends I have in this industry I met through this trip. So it's funny because like the first one I went to, the China Magic that I went on, I think it was 2017, like 4 or 5 of the people that I met on that trip, like I'm very, very close with today. And a lot of them have gone on to have massive exits as well. So it's, you make a lot of friends there as well. And it's a really special experience. This fair happens twice a year. The same categories that I mentioned for phase 2 and 3 happen in as well in April. And I go to both every year. When I said I've been to 20 Canton Fairs, that was from 2010 till 2019. And then the last 4 have been virtual fairs. But you know, Sharon, you've experienced the virtual fair as well. Like it wasn't that great. So just excited to do it in real life.
Let's just say I'm coming this. I'm not. I hope to be there in October. But let's just say if someone's coming this April, which probably they should have done it by now, but it can also prepare them for October. How many days should I put aside? So it's like 10 days or like 2 weeks a good, you know, is anything less than that not enough? And you know what I mean?
So yeah, I think it should be based on how many products you have in your brand or in your range right now. Because like if I'm a beginner and I've just got my one product and my one brand, and I would identify, all right, you know what, I can find those suppliers in like phase 2. So I'm just going to go like April 23rd to 27th. I'm going to find more suppliers and more products. And then I'll probably leave another 4 or 5 days to go and visit some factories afterwards. And I think like visiting a factory is just a great exercise to do just for yourself, to just kind of understand how products are made. It really opens your mind in terms of like what's possible and things like that. But if you've got multiple brands, multiple SKUs, then you want to allow yourself a lot more time. And I would say, look, even if your product is only, let's say you're in toys, right? And phase 2 is toys. while you're all the way there, you might as well attend phase 3 as well, because there you might see new product opportunities for a new brand that you want to start, because you already have the skill set to launch a product, launch a brand. So you might find new opportunities while you're there. So I would definitely visit phase 2 and 3, and then allow yourself, there's like 3 days in between to visit factories, or if you want to visit even more, maybe allow yourself like a week. I used to do these trips for like a month at a time before I moved to China, and I would do the fair for like 10 days, and then I would visit factories for like 3 weeks. So
wow. So what would what would that look like? So I come to the fair, I meet the supplier, and then what I'm trying to ask is, I'm at the fair, and then what? Because I've heard you also speak about how, you know, sometimes you also go to like dinner with a new supplier, things like that. So I come to the fair. How would the relationship, like, what does it look like, the steps? So I speak to them, I've got the specification sheet, I've given them, they've gone, you know, they've given it to the factory made a sample. I came back the next day, I saw the sample, you know, whatever, a couple of days after that, I go to the factory, I physically meet them. And like, what do I leave China with the purchase order that I've already put in? Like, what would the process kind of look like?
Yeah, great point. I think in the beginning, it's all about like discovering like, okay, who are the suppliers I want to work with? What are the products I'm looking to develop? And you sort of have those initial conversations. I don't necessarily sit in a booth for 3 hours and have everything done and dusted in like one meeting, but like I'll maybe talk to those, like, you know, suppliers that I didn't want to work with, build up my knowledge about a product, go to the suppliers that I do want to work with, and then like request samples, figure out pricing. But then, and maybe I'll go back to the hotel that night and I'll figure out, you know, is this going to be profitable based on the pricing that they're giving me? I'd be like, I'll go back the next day, but you know what? You offered me $13.20. I love everything about this product, but I really need it at $12.70 in order for me to order this and for it to be a successful product. How can we save 50 cents on this product without jeopardizing the quality? And then they'll be like, you know what? We talked about that 2-layer waterproof coating. Let's just do 1 layer, because actually the 1 layer is strong enough and that will save you 35 cents. All right, cool. Where can we save another 15 cents? You know, these little plastic things that we put on the bottom, you don't really need that, but all right, cool. So you can kind of like do your costing analysis, see what's workable for you, go back to the factory, a little bit back and forth. I normally take samples from what they have at the booth as well. Normally they don't like to give you the samples on day 1, because they're like, I still need to show the sample while I'm here at the exhibition. But if they brought extras, then great, you can use them. But they'll say you can take the sample on the last day. So I make a note to go back to that booth on the last day, and I'll collect the sample and I'll use it myself a few times, and then I'll tell them if I want any changes to it or if I'm happy with it there and then. And actually, one of I think the 2nd or 3rd YouTube video that I posted was called Product Development in the Canton Fair. For anyone who's not seen that, I've got a YouTube channel called Sourcing with Kian. And if you go to like the 3rd video, I actually developed a product right there and then. It was like a waterproof backpack, which I did in the booth. And I like took a product that they already had, and I made like 15 improvements on top of it. And I wrote my notes, the supplier wrote their notes. And then when I left that booth, the supplier then sent those instructions to the factory. They made the sample of what I wanted, and then they sent it to me like maybe 5 days later to the city that I was in. So, and then I'm using and testing that sample. And then if I'm happy with it, I'll place the order when I get back to the office. And normally I take like a duffel bag with me, like an empty duffel bag for like samples. So I'll take my luggage, your suitcase with all your personal stuff, and just an empty duffel, and I'll fill that duffel with samples. And then on the flight back home, I'll just book an extra luggage, and then you're coming back with all your samples as well. And then you'll go through, review all that stuff, and then decide what orders you want to place, like when you're back to the office. But then having talked to these suppliers, like if you are talking to them for like, you know, like had 2 or 3 meetings over 2 or 3 days, they might ask you, hey, what are you doing for dinner tonight? Like, oh, I'm just chilling at the hotel. Cool, I'd like to invite you to this like seafood restaurant. Like, great. And you go out, they send you an address, or they send you a driver, or you meet at their hotel, and then you just become friends. Like you just start drinking together or whatever, and then like then they sort of share some stories. They talk about their family, their life, and how they got into production and all this. They tell you some stories about China and what they feel, you know, about living here and how they like to travel, and you just become friends. And then
they ask you to give an English name to their child.
Yeah.
I remember that story you shared.
Yeah. So yeah, I've I've named some of my suppliers babies. just because they give the Chinese name and then they ask me to give the English name. So that's the sort of things that you're capable of doing once you build these relationships, right? And these guys become like very, very good friends as well. And also, like, Sharon, you know, you're very big on like the whole women in business and things like that as well. So for any female entrepreneurs as well, it's a very safe place to go, and they also very much respect female business people, because it's like you never quite know, like, are they going to be misogynistic, or do they want to speak to a man or something like that. It's like they're very, very just nice, open, kind business people. Like, I'm sure people have had bad experiences with suppliers, but they're maybe the more like dodgy, scammy suppliers that you found online before you figured out how to source properly, and you might have had some bad experiences. But the typical suppliers that attend here, a lot of them are females as well, the suppliers and staff that work there as well. So it's very, very open and caring, and at the end of the day, what really matters is the business that you're talking about placing. So if you're like a female entrepreneur which wants to place an order for 50,000 yoga mats over the course of a year, you're going to get their absolute best attention and care, and they will love to work with you. So there's nothing to be concerned about there.
That's a great point as well. So what I got from you is what you can expect from going to the Canton Fair is obviously you'll find the different types of suppliers, you'll get samples, you'll visit the factories, you're building face. What I mean by face-to-face is, you know, I have great relationships with my sourcing agents and with my factories and the suppliers that I work with. But I'm sure that once we meet, like when I actually go to China, I'm sure that it'll be like, even you and I, we're like really good friends, and we've never actually met yet to this day, face to face. And I'm sure that it just changes like the types of relationship that you can also build, and the important side of and you're really big on building relationships. The important side of building a relationship with a manufacturer, with a supplier, is that it helps you with every step of the way. For example, you know, you need an order quicker than someone else. Sometimes they'll say yes to you, even though you know, you put the order in second. B, negotiating pricing, terms, things like that. Like, I take it that when you meet them one-on-one, it helps a lot. So I would have found the suppliers, many different suppliers, gotten samples from them, built that relationship, gone to the factory, possibly gotten second samples, etc. But the order most probably going to put in, like when you're going, come back home in your office, gone through everything, compared all the different. So it's not that they're expecting you to put in the order before you leave China, right?
No, you don't have to. And like, I think there's some final checks that you want to make when you get back home, in terms of like, maybe if you have several employees in your company, to run it by your team and for them to sort of prepare the labeling and like the barcodes and the carton markings and stuff like that. And also, you might want to do a little bit further competitor research to be like, all right, I found this opportunity while I was in China, but now let me buy the top brands online and just see how they compare and things like that. Or they might have told you, we don't have this certificate yet, but we can get it for you. So you might want to wait until they pass with that certain compliance that you need. Or you might want to send your product or sample to like a third-party inspection company, like an Intertek or SGS, to make sure that the sample you have is to the standards. Like, let's say, for example, you said that this blanket that we're buying needs to be from sustainable, organic, recycled materials, and we're like, yeah, no problem, that is sustainable and organic. And until you actually like test it, you don't really know, right? Because it feels the same. So you might want to send that to a lab for testing and things like that, and be like, oh, you know what, you're right, it came out great, like amazing sustainability, and we have this certificate here. Very rarely would they lie about stuff like that, because ultimately they're going to get found out. And people, like I said, people who attend the fair are very, very serious customers, so they wouldn't even take that risk, if you know what I mean.
One of my last questions, and I feel like this entire like episode, podcast, video, whatever you want to call it, answered it. But one of my last questions is, what is like the if you had to give someone like me who's been sourcing online forever from China, had to kind of persuade me to kind of come to China, what are the biggest advantages? What is the biggest advantage that you have by actually attending the fair compared to doing everything, you know, online? What is one of the biggest advantages?
I would say the main thing is that, like in the last couple of years with the challenges that we've had in supply chain, costs have gone up, whether it be like labor costs, material costs, shipping costs, delays, all that sort of stuff, right? And when that stuff happened, I kind of looked at everything and been like, where can I save 1% here? Where can I save 2% there? And I think that for anyone who attends the Canton Fair, that's where you're going to save in all aspects. Like with the products that you're doing, you're going to get them faster. Like you said, they're going to put them to the front of the production schedule for you because you have a better relationship. Those samples that you wanted, you're going to get them for free. The product price that you wanted, you've compared them to the top 5 suppliers in that category. So you're going to get the absolute best price. The specification sheet that you've always needed for that product, they're going to make it for you. Like the new product suggestions that they're working on, they're going to suggest for you because you now have a relationship with them and now you've placed business with them. So that new product that you were looking for, you found it there. So it's literally going to make you 2-3% better across every category in supply chain you can imagine. And it'll be a lot of fun, and it'll end up not only saving you money, but making you money. And you can treat it like a holiday as well. Like if you're going to China for 2 weeks, take a couple of days after it and go to like Thailand on the way home, or stop off in Hong Kong, or maybe go up to Beijing, see the Great Wall, go up to Shanghai. I can give plenty of recommendations. I lived there for a few years. So it doesn't need to be like work, work, work. You can take some time off for yourself as well. They've got amazing like facilities, hotels, spas, restaurants, whatever you're into. You can have a very, very top experience there. So yeah, it's just every single aspect I can imagine. You're saving money and you're fast tracking your success.
Amazing.
Did I sell it to you? I should be a
I know. Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I feel like when you and I, not that long ago, it was probably like 2 months ago or something like that, I went back and I watched you and me before I joined the Seller Sessions podcast as a host. You and I were on as guests, and Danny interviewed us, and we did so many episodes together, like you, me, and Danny, and there were so many things that like that you said, and you at that time, that was before COVID, like just when COVID started. At the time, you were less like Alibaba and online, like, you weren't, that wasn't really your thing. You were like always like, no, face to face, physically there. And you were always, and I was just like, I've been doing it online and it's been fine and it's been great and blah, blah, blah. And now over the last 2 years, because you were forced to, because we were in, China was closed, we were locked down, like you've gotten more into like Alibaba and built your own processes there, etc. So now you have, you've got, you can pair it. You now know what it's like to do stuff online. And I feel like when we first, if you go back and watch some of our videos, there's a lot of not arguing, but you're like, no, this on, and I'm like, no, online. And I feel like today, from the amount since then, I've worked on so many different projects and so many different types of products and so many, and I'm just like, I can just hear your voice here, like saying and you said this to me before, you're like, Sharon, you're really good at product development. You're really good at what you do. But I just know that once we're in China, you're just going to be even better. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go in October as long as you're there. I'm going to like follow you around and learn from you, and then I can probably do it on my own afterwards. But yeah, I'm definitely going to, you persuaded me. I think everyone who's at like a certain level where they already have some sort of knowledge, I think everyone should go. Absolutely. At least once.
It's interesting. You reminded me of like what I used to talk about when we first started doing these podcasts. And you're right, I was very much, forget online, you have to be in person, you have to build those relationships, you have to touch and feel the products, you have to visit the factories, and all those things still stand. And I've been doing obviously a lot of online sourcing the last 3 years because we have to, or because we had to at that time. And I thought you were going to ask, like, now experiencing the online sourcing for the last 3 years, but also having spent so much time in China, how would you now rate it in terms of, would you still be very much have to be in person, or can you?
I don't even need to ask. I know the answer to that. I know what you're going to say, but yeah, go for it.
So what I would say is that in the last 3 years, the having to source online massively improved online sourcing, but online sourcing was pretty bad 3 years ago, and I wouldn't have. I think at that time I said the right thing, but I've seen the progression of online sourcing, because like the first YouTube video I ever made was how to find the best suppliers on Alibaba. And if you watch that video, Alibaba.com does not look like that today. A lot of the interface has changed, and the features have changed, and how they promote the better suppliers has changed, and the quality of suppliers that they invite onto the platform has improved, and the bad ones get kicked off. So now you can actually have a very pleasant experience online. But if I was to put a number on it, I would say that like if you only source online, you're probably only getting up to 60% of the goodness. But if you were to go in person, you'll reach it, you'll get it up to 100. So, and 60%, you could argue, is it enough to be successful? Yes, because a lot of people are, but you hit that next level and a level beyond, like once you really understand how your goods are made and who you're working with and how much things actually cost. And that's, you can only do that there.
Yeah, you know, as you were talking, so you were explaining, you know, the booths and stuff. So like I have a vision, you know, I'm visualizing what you were saying, and I had like this vision of these like you said toys was in the second phase. And I'm just working currently on a few different projects, which are like different types of toys. I told you before we started, I won't say it now, but different types of toys. And as you were saying it, I was like, currently with like one of these projects, I've got 2 sourcing agents, 3 different manufacturers that I'm working with just to make this one product so that we can compare, right? And navigating through different samples, speaking to each one, you know, etc. I was like, man, it would have been so much easier if I was at the Canton Fair and there's like booth 1, 2, 3, 4, and just hopping from one booth to the, you know what I mean? Like, and I would be leaving China with, that's it. I know who I'm going to work with most probably, or else. So yeah, I can totally understand how amazing, you know, actually being there is. I have one last question, then we'll wrap it up because we've been going for a while. After China's been, it's a big question. After China's been closed for so long, I am sure that this Canton Fair is going to be a special one in regards to how hungry. No, so China's been locked up for so long. Lots of up and down in general in China, economy, etc. We won't get into the politics side of things. But also after they have been so used to, you know, the huge increase in demand, and then demand's gone down dramatically for many different reasons, economy, etc., throughout the world. I'm sure that suppliers today are going to be really freaking hungry for getting you to work with them. Negotiation wise, terms wise, like what are some tips that you can give on that?
Well, you know, it's really interesting because like you made a good point that like suppliers will be very, very hungry. And I guess that I won't really know until I get there, because I've not been there for 3.5 years. Like November 2019 was the last time I was in China, and now we're at it will be April 2023, so it'll be 3.5 years. And I was kept in touch with my suppliers and I've talked to many at length in that time. But once we actually get there, I think it's going to be interesting, because my perspective will have been, wow, this has changed in 3.5 years, or like this is the way that they develop products now. It's a lot more AI involved, or like these suppliers which were here before are no longer there, or these new ones have popped up and they're scaling very quickly because they have this technology. And I'm excited about seeing that aspect of it, to be like, how does it change, and how does I'm sure their like communication and hospitality and all that will be the same, and the same sort of principles apply. But the fair in itself, like what type of products we see there, what type of suppliers we see there, what regions are specializing in certain products, what new product categories that appear. And one thing that we forgot to mention was that the Canton Fair also has a design hall as well, where they have they award the winners of innovative new products from factories, and it's very, very hidden. It's in like a glass little room that you only really know it's there if you've like been to the fair a million times. And I would just sort of wander in there and just sort of see what are the product innovations, and then go and talk to those suppliers. So I'm excited about going back to that hall to see like what new things have they worked on. So I guess we could do a recap episode when I get back in May, and I can tell you, we can compare notes from this episode to the next, what actually changed.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. Great idea. I'll hold you to that.
Cool.
All right. Is there any last tips or tricks or notes or anything that you want to mention before we wrap it up?
I think we covered a lot. I think about if I was to start talking about a different topic, I'll talk for another 20 minutes. This is what I just think that, yeah, if like I said, if you're interested in coming with us, you can go to ChinaMagicTrip.com. If you have any quick questions, feel free to reach out to me. I've got loads of sourcing content on YouTube, Sourcing with Kian, also on Instagram, Kian_JG. And yeah, if you have any questions, send me a DM, hit me up, and hopefully see you all in China. And Sharon, hopefully see you there in October.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to meet before that.
Yeah.
It'll be funny if the first time we're like face to face will actually be in China. Kian, thank you so much for your time. You know, I appreciate you and love you very much. And you are beyond, you know, one of the best at what you do. You're an amazing human being. You're a great friend. You're always there for me when I need you. And yeah, just thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. The feeling is mutual, and it's always a lot of fun to catch up with you and also to do these episodes. We were supposed to record this episode about 3 hours ago, and we caught up for 2 hours before we press record. So,
which is what I love about us, that we can not talk for like a year, and then suddenly, you know, it's as if we just caught up on everything quickly, and yeah. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to reach out to me as well, I also have my YouTube channel, Sharon Evan, and my website, SharonEvan.com. And you can also find me on official Sharon Evan on Instagram as well. I will see you all next week, and we will catch up with Kian when he gets back from the Canton Fair for part 2 to see how it was. Thanks so much, Kian.